G'day guys and welcome to AskaPathfinder's Musings, the show where we chat and chew the fat on some of the topics and discussions you've brought up either on Facebook or Discord or wherever you happen to catch me. This weekend I spent time at the Southern Hemisphere Open here in Perth, Western Australia, and a question got asked: why do we pay game masters, or why should we pay game masters? What is it that they provide that regular game masters can't? Well, there's a lot of trains of thought on this particular topic, and I find that there is a lot of different opinions. If you have some, share them in the comments below, and I'm happy to engage. But in my experience, game mastering for money is a good thing. Obviously, I say this because that is how I make my money, so of course, there's a bit of bias there. But please take everything I say with a grain of salt. The idea behind paying a game master is, in essence, one simple truth. It is a way of valuing your game master's time. Now, if you're dealing with a lot of friends and a lot of family members who in fact run games for you, then of course valuing their time could come in a whole bunch of different ways. You could buy them lunch, you could provide them snacks, you can ensure that their soft drinks are always stocked. There are lots of different ways that you can provide compensation that isn't necessarily monetary. However, when you don't know this person, when you don't know who this individual is, that's when things sort of come into play. What are you willing to do for this other person to spend time preparing and running your campaign? Now, the idea of paying a GM is not a recent thing. Obviously, there have been many cases of it happening over the years, and with the growth and expansion of technology and internet communications, there's been no better time to step into this kind of industry. But there is a certain expectation, and that's what I want to kind of discuss with you guys right now, is what is the expectation when you, as a player, pay a game master? Well, the first expectation people often have is that this is going to be some sort of special game. This is going to be some sort of amazing and different and worthwhile experience that is unique and unlike any other game you're ever bound to play unless you pay for this money, unless you pay for this game. That is sometimes true, but it's not always true, and that's the kind of sad truth. Most GMs in this position work for free regarding their preparation and really only charge for either the table or the session that they happen to be running. Whether it's a one-shot table or if it's an ongoing campaign, that's the nature of the paying a GM, sort of structure. Now, some GMs, like myself, like to put on a bit of a show. I am an entertainer by nature, and I love meeting people, and I love being able to show really what I'm capable of as a GM. So I love music, I love figurines, I love being able to put on voices and accents. So much so that I actually practice for hours before I run a campaign. I make sure I know which voices I want to use for what people, and try to bring them to life so that my players always remember the game that they were in. There are some, though, who do go the opposite direction, where it's, no, I'm going to run this game just like any other game, and it's fine because you're paying me literally to run a game, so why should I do anything different? Well, I agree with both sides of it. It's good to expect a little bit more, but I think that's a standard the GM needs to keep. A GM who is paid needs to keep in mind that, well, yeah, the players are paying for this experience. Spending that little bit of extra time to do some extra prep work or to kind of try and add a little bit of a flourish to your game, these are the things that will separate you and will make sure that your players, when you run your first pay-to-GM game, will continue to want to play these games and will continue to want to support you. And that's the nature of the industry. That's the nature of how it's supposed to work. I knew a guy who sent me a message actually saying that he had a pay-to-play game and he was bored and he felt really awkward because he couldn't ask for a refund because the guy had already come out and done the thing. And that's very true. It is a sad truth about the entertainment industry. When you pay for any kind of entertainment, let's talk about a clown at a children's birthday party. If you pay for this clown and he shows up and he just doesn't entertain anyone, and this might not be his fault, he could be a fantastic clown, but if the kids aren't into it and stuff like that, well, sadly, you still got to pay them. You know, they've still given their time, they've still given their effort, but chances are you'll probably not go with a clown next year. Same way that goes with a GM. If you play with a GM and the GM is mediocre and you don't really feel like paying him, or you don't really feel like he's worth that much, well, you still have to pay him that for what he's done, but then you don't necessarily have to come back to it. And that's where that's where my first advice is. If you ever want to be a paid GM, always hold yourself to a higher standard. Always think about, what is the next thing I can do to improve where I'm at with my game. All right, the next thing that you guys want to be aware of, the next big expectation for players when it comes to GMing is, of course, the fact that when you start a game as paid, you end a game as paid. This is, at least for me and for everyone I've interacted with, this is entirely not true. I have never come across a GM who has said, I am going to get this much money for this hour to this hour. He starts on the clock, and then he drops off on the clock, and he says, sorry guys, we're done. Thank you very much for playing. We've reached the end because the time's up. Yep, that's okay. We're in the middle of initiative. Don't worry about it. I remember where everything is. We'll just get out of my house. Right? I've never seen a GM do that. And if they did, I would, again, suffice to say that this person would not be a professional GM for much longer. There are many times where I've had scenarios where I've just gone over time because it just seemed silly to stop at a certain point, or maybe we had a bit of a break in the middle and everyone was kind of mucking about, which is fine. It's great to socialize, but at the same time, it's like, we didn't get through enough of the adventure. Let's jog on a tiny bit more. So more often than not, when I accept payment for a game, I'll go a little bit further than what is expected, and that's kind of the norm, I feel, from a lot of the game masters like myself. The third expectation here is that you are entitled to the contents of your game. By this, I mean that if you pay your GM, it's about saying, you as a GM are being paid to run this adventure, and that is the adventure I demand you play. You are going to run me through Rise of the Rune Lords, and Rise of the Rune Lords needs to be done by the book, and you have to do this and you have to do that. Well, look, if you've paid for the book, you may as well read it. Otherwise, you're paying for a GM. You're paying for someone who is, in all essence, someone who has good judgment, a good vibe, and a good feeling about the game, and they want to create a unique experience for you. Not just something cookie cutter and off the shelf, something that's really going to be truly special to you as an individual. Now, these are all the expectations for paying a GM. How can you become a GM? How can you become a professional GM? Well, I've spoken to a couple of people recently about the idea of how to become a professional GM. You're not going to get rich over it. And paying by the table is just a terrible scheme. It just won't ever get to a point where you will be supported by this idea. Let me give you an example. So the three methods in which I've seen payment happen, and all these figures are going to be Australian dollars, so if you have a converter. So I know a guy who runs $15 for a 3-hour table. And that's it, flat, $15. Now, if you want to break that down, $15 for a 3-hour table, that is $5 an hour. $5 an hour is lower than minimum wage. It is chicken feed. And, that's a very low value for a table. Another person has a flat, it's $5 per head. So we got 5 people, 5, 10, 15, 20, $25 a table. Again, for a 3-hour session, that's still less than $10 an hour. That's still below minimum wage in Australia. Now, these kind of things are very common, and I know a lot of GMs do it. Now, the reasons a lot of GMs do it is because they want to try and keep the value high for the quality, but also keep the cost really, really low. They want to find a way for players to really engage and enjoy it. But I want to do some mental math with you. Now, my upbringing in terms of my training and stuff like that is I went to university, I studied entertainment, performance, did a couple of years in stage, a couple of years in fight choreography, live action, stuff like that. And for me, the industry standard was always $35 an hour. That was fresh out of uni, $35 an hour, that is what you get paid. At $35 an hour, for 3 hours worth of, gaming, That is $105 an hour. That's right, $105 a game. $105 a game divided by, let's say, 5 people is $20, or just over $20 per person for a table of 5 for 3 hours worth of games. If we divide that $20 by 3 again, that is less than $10 an hour for a form of entertainment. You can't go to the movies for that amount of time with $20. You can't go to Time Zone or whatever arcades you have in wherever part of the world you're from. You can't go to an arcade and spend that amount of money in that amount of time, right? You may be there for an hour at best for $20. $20 could be a reasonable lunch, which won't last that long. Again, this is kind of what we look at. We look at just how little the cost is if we pay a fair wage to your professional GM. I think it needs to be shaken, this idea of game mastering is just a hobby. It is like playing handball. It is like, being out in the streets and sort of playing with Spider-Man dolls. This is, it's sort of beyond that now. Yes, it is a game, but so is a sport. And God damn it, you know how much sportsmen get paid, right? It's insane. And GMing requires tons of skills, tons of focus, a lot of research, and a lot of time being spent on a particular game. It's never an advisable idea to do what I do, spend so much time preparing and running your campaigns if you can't support yourself. Another person I talked to at this convention pretty much said that one of the things is that gaming and stuff like that, getting paid for it, is all supplementary. That's just the idea. It's just we get paid a little tiny bit that just helps us through the week. And that's fine, but it doesn't need to be that way. A fair pay is not unreachable. It is not unreasonable. And I think it just needs that kind of attitude to be shaken off before it goes from being a hobby and a supplementary income to being an actual profession, to being something that you can pursue if you really wanted to. All right, guys. So that's pretty much what I was going to discuss. I just had a couple of comments here which I really wanted to address from people who had asked me questions about this topic, and just sort of answer them while I get the chance to. So the first question here is, how did I get into the role of professional game mastering? Well, for me, I actually walked off the streets, to be honest. As weird as it sounds, I used to be a lab technician for a engineering company, and at the time, the industry was kind of a bit miserable, and I was a casual staff member, and naturally, sort of seeing what was happening, I was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna get cut pretty soon. So I started looking for work, and nothing mainstream ever really came up. So I went into my local youth center, and I tried just talking about just one of the things I was really good at, and that is, hey, look, I can run Pathfinder games. That's one of my big skills. It's, pardon me. Sorry. It's one of the things I'm very capable of doing. So I went and I spoke with the bosses. I kept talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. I think it was a war of attrition, because it basically got to a point where I said, okay, so what do you want me to do? Can I put up posters here or what? And they turned around and said, oh my God, if we give you a couple $100, will you shut up, make a program and do something with this? And I went, yes, I will. And I did. My program started at the youth center, and I started with one kid became 2 kids became 4, so on and so forth, until it made a massive impact. I've got people from other city councils talking to me about running their own RPG programs out of their youth centers. Honestly, dude, the only thing I could recommend is put yourself out there. Show people what it is you have to offer. Whether or not it's you as an individual, whether or not it's your massive collection of miniatures, whether or not it's your encyclopedic knowledge of the game system. Whatever you have that makes you special as a GM, that's what you need to highlight. And that's what you need to sell to other people to make them think, hey, this is a guy we want to bring on board. The next question that I've got here is for someone who is in the role-playing game industry, do you feel it cheapens the idea of role-playing if you accept money for it? Look, I'm going to be honest. I think it does to a degree. If I were running a game for my friends and I turned around and said, hey guys, listen, I'm going to start charging you because I'm a professional GM and you need to pay me, that's a bit crap. and I don't think that's great. I suppose the catch comes down to, at what point are you not able to afford the time it takes to build a game? There's a certain line, I suppose, in the sand where if you're running a game, if you're, running casual games, this amount of time is casual. This amount of time is perfect, and that's fine. I can't take on any more projects because if I take on any more, I'm taking away from time that I would be using to earn money, trying to live. Paying for a GM alleviates that to a degree. So you as a player can turn around and say, hey, we'll all chip in, we'll give you like $50 an hour. What can you do with that? And then it's like, oh, well, hey, that's like 2 hours worth of work. So yeah, I can make that work. I can really make that happen. And that's a reasonable amount of money that I'm getting now, which is great. And it's fantastic. And it's great incentive to kind of push a GM forward and give them that sense of, well, yes, no, I'm doing this because I'm getting paid, and I'm getting paid a good amount, and I'm really wanting to make this happen. So in that way, it doesn't really cheapen the experience, but it values the experience. I'm going to share a story just as a last little thing, because I'm running a little bit over time. When I started running the youth center programs, I didn't expect to be running it for as long as I did. I honestly, after the first few weeks, I was very disheartened. I thought, look, I've got like 3 kids that are showing up every week. It's the same 3 kids. No one new is coming through the door. What do I do? And I got a message from, sorry, pardon me. It is actually quite late where I am. I got a message from one of my young people's parent, and they said, look, my son, since he started coming to the youth center and coming to attend your thing, he's become an entirely different person. They've really stepped into their own. They've started making more friends. They've started talking to people more. They look, it's like up until this point, they were really dissuaded with trying to get into anything apart from just video games. But now every single week he just looks forward to coming to this D&D session and just really enjoying and engaging with your program. And thank you for providing this service for my child. And man, like, I tell you what, anytime I get to that point where I feel worn down, I feel tired, I feel broken, I actually do just pull out that email and I read it, and it just revitalizes me, and I can't help but think to myself, like, look, if I didn't take this job, if I didn't become a professional game master, like, that wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have changed this person. I wouldn't have helped this kid, like, come out of his shell. And I don't regret it. The fact that I'm getting paid for it is a way for me to be able to do it with more of my time. It's not a way for me to get rich. It's not a requirement for me to be able to play with these young people. It's a way for me to give it my best. So in that way, I don't think it cheapens the game. I think if anything, it gives you more incentive to be better, to do better, at least in some regards. I'm sure that there are GMs out there who don't, but I mean, I can't say that I'm one of them. And all I can say is that if you are one of those GMs who do accept money and you don't really give it your all, there's no harm in putting that extra foot forward. There's no harm in making sure that every experience they have is a great one. Okay, guys. Well, that's the time I've got for today. I went a bit over time, but and I do apologize for the yawning. It is actually quite late here, and I've just finished my day-long convention. By the way, again, I'm at the Southern Hemisphere Open this weekend. If you are in Perth, Western Australia, it is Monday that I'll be on there, at 9 a.m. where I'll be running a Pathfinder 2nd Edition playtest. Just a quick announcement as well. Yes, we are still in playtesting phases. We are still doing stuff. It is hectic. So I am hopefully going to be back on track with my articles on Facebook, as well as a whole bunch of new and exciting things ready for you guys starting next week. So thank you very much, guys, for your patience, and thank you for joining me today for Ask a Pathfinder's Musing. If you've got any other thoughts on paying a GM or whether or not it's a good idea or a bad idea, please leave your comments below. If you know paid GMs who did a fantastic job, give them a shout out. And if, of course, you have some ones that you didn't like, then, I suppose don't give them a shout out, but more like, I suppose, just let us know what they did and what you think they could have done better to make your game more enjoyable. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. Again, this is just a GM musing thing, so if you want to see more GM musing things as well, leave a comment and just say, hey, we really like these, or it's way too casual, or, oh my god, Michael looks so tired. And of course, if you want to check out more of our stuff from Ask a Pathfinder, head on over to facebook.com/AskaPathfinder, or head on over to our Discord channel at discord.me/AskaPathfinder. And of course, if you want to become one of our cheeky goblins, head on over to our Patreon page, and for as little as $1 a month, you can help support us and Ask a Pathfinder in doing all these cool and amazing things, such as getting a cool green screen and getting new technologies and things like that. Every little bit helps, and we love you all the more for it. And of course, till next time, guys, from us at Ask a Pathfinder, please make sure that you keep your dice rolling and make sure your ideas stay mind-worm free. Have a good one, guys.